Hi, welcome back to Exploring Lean. I'm Julia Kirby, your host. Today we will be talking to Robert Martichenko, CEO of LeanCor, about a deep understanding of lean thinking. Robert, welcome to the show.
Hi Julia, thanks for having me.
So let's get started. What is your definition of a deep understanding of lean? Like, what does that mean?
Well, I think that maybe we need to go back a little bit to get to the answer to that. And a lot of organizations over the last decades have embraced lean thinking and
Right.
oftentimes have struggled with creating a lean culture. I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody say to me, well, you know, Robert, we tried that lean thing last year and it didn't work. and I say, well, what exactly do you mean by that lean thing? So I think that somewhere along the way that there was a maybe some contradictions that came about that thinking that lean is about a toolkit, it's about 5S and visual management and all of and standard work and all of these tools that are fine, but at the same time aren't really what we're trying to do from a lean point of view as far as changing culture. So when we talk about this idea of a deep understanding of lean, what that means to me is that what you have to appreciate is what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create a problem-solving culture. We're trying to create a business culture where the leadership systems and the management systems are all focused on making problems visible, solving problems at the root cause, and then adding more value to the customer at the lowest possible total cost. Excuse me. So that's what we mean when we say a deep understanding of lean. It's well beyond the toolkit. And it's more, it's at a higher level of thinking that this is about completely transforming your business culture to be one of a problem-solving culture.
So it sounds like it's really about getting these people involved, much like we talked about in our last segment, getting everyone involved and really, you know, driving that culture of problem solving and eliminating waste. And so in regards to culture, you know, the big part of culture is people and aligning people. And, you know, one of those aspects is showing respect for people to be able to develop this culture. So how do you show respect for people in an organization?
Well, that's a great question, and you know, and respect and humility is a big part of lean leadership, and there's a few different ways to show respect for people. And the very first way, and maybe it's the only way, and it's got different segments to it, but the first way and primary way that you show respect for somebody is to give them a safe work environment. So first of all, there's a safe environment relative to just safety as we would all know it. In our warehouses, we're focused very, very closely on safety and in all parts of our operations. But there's also an element of creating a safe work environment for people emotionally as well. So because when we're going to go in and start to really go after our problems and to eliminate waste, which is essentially solving problems, we need to recognize that if people aren't used to this is going to be a whole new world for people. And so we need to be able to create a safe environment where people say, oh, okay, you mean it's actually okay to start airing our dirty laundry? It's okay to start saying, well, what about this, what about that? Because there's a lot of people that aren't used to that, and there's a lot of cultures that are a who, blame culture. And when you start to try to transform that culture, then you need to make sure that you're creating an environment that shows respect to the people, that you understand what it is you're now asking people to do.
Okay, great. So it really sounds like you're trying to create an environment where people aren't afraid to make mistakes and show where the problems are so that you can find them and fix them.
True lean thinking is about doing experiments. It's about having a hunch of what might fix a problem and running an experiment and then seeing the results. We're no different than the scientists, right? We have a hypothesis and test your hypothesis, look at the results, and then continue to do that problem-solving cycle.
So that kind of leads into my next question, which is about respect for process. So in a similar way, how do you show respect for process, which is, part of the lean fundamentals and lean thinking?
So if we go back to our earlier segment, I mentioned that at the end of the day, the customer only feels the aggregate, the aggregate of all of our processes combined. So in other words, if a customer's happy or unhappy, that's because they felt the end of all of these processes, marketing processes, operations, manufacturing, finance, invoicing, you name it. We have thousands of processes in our businesses, and the customer feels the aggregate of all of those things combined. A lean leader understands, first of all, that that's a fact, that the business is about what the customer feels is about the performance of those processes. But secondly, a lean leader understands that processes by their very nature want to fall apart. And we talk about this with the second law of thermodynamics and entropy. The fact of the matter is processes get up in the morning and they say, how can I fall apart today? And a lean leader once a lean leader appreciates that, then when you go to work and everything's falling apart, you don't yell and scream and kick the ball into the stands. You say, okay, that's because the processes are trying to do that. Now it's our job to put an equal or more amount of pressure on those processes to not fall apart than they are actually putting out trying to fall apart.
Okay, so really putting some pressure and some discipline around processes and not letting them fall apart is how you can show respect.
And recognizing that the process's job is to fall apart. So I'm showing the process respect by saying, well, I'm not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight to try to make that so it doesn't happen by using PDA cycles and problem solving to keep it in check.
And I've heard you talk about focusing on the work a lot. And when you hear that, focusing on the work, it can be kind of a general term. So what do you mean by that in terms of, showing respect for people and then the process?
Well, so if we go back to showing respect for people and respect for process, then this idea of focus on the work, that gets to, a lean leadership theory around that we ask why and not who. So when something goes wrong, it's a very traditional approach just to say, well, who did this? Whose fault is this? Who needs to pay for this? Whose head is going to roll for this? All the different analogies that we've heard. A lean leader doesn't say who. A lean leader says why. Why did this happen? What part of our processes, what part of our thinking fell apart in order to create this service failure? So we're not trying to go and find out who to blame. We're trying to go and we're focusing on the work to say, why did this happen? What part of our work and what part of our thinking around our work was not quite where it needed to be?
Okay, great. Well, you've provided some really nice insight today. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for tuning in to Exploring Lean. We'll see you next time.